You are listening to the Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast, where you discover management insights and strategies for your successful dental practice. There are also interviews with key people in the industry who have advice and services to help you and your team achieve great success. Welcome to this episode of the Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast, and I have something a little bit different for you today. I was recently asked as a guest for the second time on the podcast from the US, The Dental Brief, with Patrick Chavoste. And in that podcast, we spoke a little bit about one of the main challenges that dental practices are moving through at the moment. We've all heard so much about it, recruitment, but we did speak a little bit about recruitment, getting a great team together and the leadership that's required in order to make that a successful path to go down. We spoke about how to build a workplace that really does attract exceptional team members and fostering an environment of genuine trust and care. These are deeper level, more spiritual elements that go into building a great team. If you haven't already subscribed to The Dental Brief, it is a fantastic podcast. It's aimed to be at between 10 and 20 minutes per episode, so fantastically short for great snippets and always interviewing people that have terrific advice for helping you as dental practice employees and owners be more successful and achieve greater success as a practice as a whole. So I really hope you enjoy listening to this episode of the Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast, where I was a guest on The Dental Brief. Enjoy.
The Dental Brief is brought to you by Omni Premier Marketing and the amazing guests who bring wisdom and advice that you can put to use to take your business and practices to the next level. Find us on Facebook and join the conversation. Get ready to grow because we are kicking off the next episode in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Dental Brief. Got a returning guest on today, international guest coming from Australia. Julie Parker, say hello to everyone.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me back, Patrick.
I'm glad to have you here. I remember our last episode. I remember you're on fire, you're passionate, you've really got a lot of great energy, so I'm glad to have you back. A little bit about yourself. So just kind of give us the quick background. How'd you get involved in dentistry and helping dentists?
Sure thing. Very swiftly, I was an early school leaver, became a dental assistant, went through all the usual roles, auxiliary roles of a dental practice, then became the first non-dentist to buy a practice in Australia and owned that for 10 years. Loved every minute of it. Once I sold that, I became a consultant, and my consultant journey has been going on for about 12 years now. And over the last few years, I've combined forces with another consultant, Amina Basile, and we've got Dental Business Mastery together. So we help dental teams through our online courses and through our on-site training programs that go on for about a year to help them achieve greater success.
Awesome. And the website is dentalbusinessmastery.com.au, correct?
Perfect. It is. That's it.
Yep. Awesome. So tell me, Julia, I know most of our audience is here in the US. I know we have listeners overseas. I know some of those overseas listeners know who you are. Talk a little bit to me about problems that you see dentists facing there, but hopefully they're problems that you know that dentists are having all over the planet. What are some of those things? What are some of those challenges, some issues that they're having that you can help with?
I think recruitment's still an issue, isn't it? I think we touched on this last time years ago as well, but ever since COVID, it seemed, I know that here in my state of Victoria in Australia, during the COVID time, we lost 31% of our dental assistants and receptionists crew out of the industry, and we haven't been able to replace them. And so I think recruitment is still a big issue. I think we've got very old ideas and traditional ideas on how we approach that. And I think with the changing generations coming through, with the changing challenges around recruitment, we just need to start doing things a little bit differently. I think doing things the same way and not getting the results we used to get. We're getting shitty results now. And so we do need to start looking at how to do that differently and how we can, as dental practices, create an environment which doesn't just attract good people because you've got a great ad and you had a good interview process and good onboarding process. But your practice on the day-to-day functions operates in a way that keeps these great employees, and you become like an employer of choice. I think we need to kind of shift. We've always wanted to become a practice of choice for patients. We need to become a practice of choice for employees as well.
Yeah, makes total sense to me. So let's start with something. When people ask me like how to get a good online reputation, how to get great online reviews, I always say, well, don't be a jerk. Like that's a good place to start, right? So it's a really good place to start if you want a great reputation, great online reviews, offer great service, right? Treat people really, really well. Has to be some of that involved in recruiting, keeping a good team, right? If you're a great employer and you're looking at yourself first and what you can do to improve, I'm sure that makes that whole process and journey much easier, does it?
Oh, for sure. And I think Richard Branson said something about your top priority must be to look after your people, because then your people look after the patients or look after the clients.
Right.
And the practice owners that I feel that get this more right, I don't know if you ever get this perfect, but get this more right, are the ones that have a true, authentic, spiritual desire to contribute to the people that work for them and to create an environment that really allows them to thrive. And some of the characteristics of those kind of bosses, they're not the ones that complain that this generation doesn't work hard, doesn't want to work hard. They're not the ones that complain when people have to take a bit of time off because they're sick or a child is sick or a parent is sick. When people say, I need a holiday, they go, fantastic, where can we make sure that you get sent so you can replenish and come back and give your best? So they really do look at their team members in a more, rather than just an employed way, an employment relationship, they look at them as fellow human beings that are worthy of being managed in a way that is conducive to health, mind, body, spirit health for them. And so that's the space that they're coming from when they're making decisions around what kind of environment are we going to create for these people.
Right. We were on, my wife and I maybe 3-4 weeks ago, we were on a train at Denver International Airport. If anybody's been through here, you have to ride a train to get from like the terminal to the terminal. And there was a couple of employees who worked at one of the restaurants in the airport. And one was complaining about how much their boss hated him. And the gal turned to him and said, well, I don't think he really hates you. I think they just don't like any of us. Like they don't care about any of us, like trying to make him feel better in a way. But I think she was being really, really true. You do have to care about your people. And that's something that you can't fake, right? You can't fake caring about your people.
That's right. It's like trust. You can't fake trust either. You can say all the things in the world, but unless you are trustworthy through your actions, people aren't going to be trusting of you. And caring is the same. And my husband, Charles Kovess, is Australasia's passion provocateur. He does a lot of work with teams and businesses and individuals with more self-awareness work. But he on his show, the Charles Kovess Show, was speaking about how trust and caring are spiritual elements. These are not just basic things. These are spiritual elements. And it really made me reflect that in my experience, and probably with a lot of your audience members out there as well, you've worked in environments where a particular team member becomes your buddy. And you just get along well. You love working together. Right. You can't wait to work together. If that person's sick, you're like, oh, the day is less than today. And the things that you do for that employee, that work buddy, are over and beyond what you would do for any other work buddy. And I've always thought to myself, how could I as a consultant really create the environment and the pathways so all team members feel that way about each other? And listening to this one episode on the Charles Kovess Show, it really started to help me tap into, I'm trying to give them tasks and behaviors to do. Whereas what we really want is to be able to understand what it takes to truly care for another human being and how we can foster an environment where that is likely.
Right. I think Simon Sinek said that an ideal workplace is kind of going back to like tribal humans years ago, that we had to trust each other to stay alive, right? And I had to trust, if we were in the same clan or the same tribe together, I had to trust you to stay awake on watch all night long so that I could sleep and I didn't get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. I don't think that exists in a lot of practices. I think it exists in the practices that are having no trouble hiring and have a wait list, right? Those, they do exist. But I think most practices that is not existing. So what are some steps that you can do to get there? So what are some steps that you can do to build trust with your team? And let me clarify that. So that you trust your team more. What are some things that you can do that are honest to convince yourself that, hey, I have some awesome people that I can trust here? There's got to be some actions that you can take, right?
There's a bunch of actions that we can take. First of all, we can start to model behaviour. Look at all the sporting codes. For me down here in Melbourne, Australia, it's Australian Football League, AFL, footy rule, AFL. And whenever these team members are interviewed after they win a grand final, they all say the same thing. We love each other. We've got each other's back. We'll do anything for each other. So recognize, first of all, it does exist in many different parts of the world, and look at what they do to generate it. Read all the books of those footy code and sporting code coaches and top performers, and find out what they do in order to make sure. And I think one of our football team, Damien Hardwick, who was the coach of Richmond, and he went over to Harvard to do a leadership course over in Harvard. And that was life-changing for him as well, and really changed the results that he was able to generate within the team. So first of all, know that it's out there, know that there's clear examples of how to do it. The next thing is to understand what caring looks like and what trustworthiness looks like. And so, for example, trustworthiness, keeping your word, walking the talk, making sure you're looking after people as a top priority, not after the business gets looked after only. We're looking after people as a top priority. So focus every week on one element of trustworthiness and caring, and build that skill over that week. Study it, feel it, and start to make sure that you are fostering it within yourself, because then that will start to be fostered within the whole environment. The third element is to have this kind of really open, frank communication with your team members. It's a process to get them to trust in that process, that I can be open and frank and there's no cost to me. So don't expect honest answers immediately, but start the process of having these sort of crucial conversations, so you know exactly what's going on in your employee's mind. What is their reality? Because until you can really address and acknowledge and honour what's real for them, only then do they feel safe enough that you've got their back. So now I can start having the back of the business. And that's kind of from lessons that I've learned from Jay Abrahams, that management and leadership guru over in your part of the world. And so I think there are clear steps that can be taken with these sort of things. And it's just about being inquisitive of who's out there doing it at the moment that I can learn from, and research, and ask the people themselves.
Yep. Now, I know a lot of people that are listening are going, okay, Julie, it's easier said than done. And it's true, right? It is actually easier said than done. This takes work, right? This takes something that you actually have to work at. This is like becoming, you used sports analogies. I love them. To become an elite athlete, you practice and you practice and you practice. The greatest don't just show up and play, right? They practice constantly. So what are the things that you can do to practice? You mentioned a couple of books. What else can you look for? Obviously, check out Julia's website, dentalbusinessmastery.com.au. Good place to start. What are some other things that you can do to become an expert at this and make this something you can achieve and get done?
If they need those clear step-to-step examples, and we've got our dental practice management course, which is available for aspiring practice managers and practice owners themselves. We go through these steps as part of the modules within our online course. We've actually just had our first US student graduate from Wyoming, so that was a thrill to have him involved for the past year.
That's awesome.
It is fantastic. And so do tap into dentalbusinessmastery.com.au, because even if it's just to give us a phone call, send through an email, get some direction on what to do next. Doesn't have to, don't charge for just free advice going out there, but we can absolutely give you clear pathways to take to actually start to make differences within yourself and therefore your practice. Always know that the change has to happen within you first.
Sure.
And as you say, we can have all the best intentions in the world, but if we don't actually take these steps in action, put these things into play, then they're just words. They're meaningless.
Yep. Makes sense to me. Julie, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I appreciate it. Again, I'm going to give the website one more time, dentalbusinessmastery.com.au. Check it out. Reach out to Julia if you're across the pond. I think even people here in the U.S. can benefit from checking out her website too. So please do that. Julie, thanks so much for being here.
My absolute pleasure, and good luck on the future days of your podcast, because the past ones have been absolutely brilliant. I listen to it all the time, and I encourage all of my Aussie mates to listen to it as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Julie. I appreciate you.
If you enjoyed this podcast, then I encourage you to head over to Amina and my website, dentalbusinessmastery.com.au. You will find all the information that you need if you would like to gain our assistance in helping you and your team achieve great success. If you would like to find out more, you can also email us directly at info@dentalbusinessmastery.com.au. Thanks so much for listening.